Hello and welcome to the Kemetic How-To Guide for Egyptian pagan and Kemetic practitioners. I'm your host Sharon and welcome once again. I am actually working on several videos at once. Some of them are going to be Patreon exclusives and I'll tell you more about those in just a few minutes. What the heck? Let me tell you about our Patreon exclusives and then we'll get on to today's episode. You see, my brother entrusted me with an adult novelty doll last year. And it's been here a while. I don't know if he's coming back for it. So we decided to mummy wrap it. And the videos for that, so far I have two, where we do the preparation, we're making bandages for this mummy, and then where we're actually wrapping her. Those are going to be Patreon exclusive videos. You have to be, the top, subscriber to get to see those because it's an adult novelty doll. But when we get to making the actual mummy mask for her, now that she's all wrapped up, I'll put that where everyone can see it because you won't see anything naughty. But that's something that the Patreon folks, you can look forward to seeing that coming pretty soon. But today we're going to be talking about making natron, and we're actually going to make some natron. Now I talk about that a little bit in Following the Sun. It's something that's very common. If you're Kemetic, then natron is kind of an important thing for your world. And even the Kemetic Orthodox has a chapter on that in their beginner course. But we're going to talk about the chemistry behind this today because there are some things that I think are important to cover in understanding what natron is, how it works, and how to make a better batch of it yourself, and why you need to make it yourself. Let me start off with a couple of stories about that to give you a quick history lesson. And I realize that some of my viewers, I might be talking about something a little bit before your time. But you see, in September of 2001, I was 24. And when you think September 2001 in history, you're probably thinking of 9/11. Well, in the immediate aftermath of that, there was an attack which is still unsolved, where somebody sent anthrax, which is bacteria, in the mail using a white powder. And these envelopes with this white powder containing anthrax bacteria were sent to NBC News and several other places and got a lot of people sick. Here's the funny thing. This is the ultimate in bad timing. During that same few weeks, and this is in the chaos after the 9/11 attacks, so everybody is just like, rattled to begin with, and then you have the anthrax attacks, and everybody was scared to open their mail. I got a package that was empty because some douchebag had stolen the little car flags out of the tube, and so I got an empty package, and I didn't touch it for a week because I was scared of what might be in there because of the anthrax scare. And in the middle of all of this, there was a car dealership in Florida that thought it would be a really great gimmick to mail people in a direct mail ad a single Tylenol to say, well, we have the cure for the headache of high prices. Problem is, a lot of people got these in the mail and they were crushed into a white powder, and they get it from somebody they don't recognize, so they call the authorities. And this dealership had a much bigger headache than they had imagined. So that's why you won't find natron in my Etsy store. So I just have kind of a thing about sending white powders in the mail. And also, if you're a Gen Xer, white powders, you don't want people to think that, you've got any number of illicit substances. So that's why we're going to learn how to do this ourselves. So to start off with, natron is a salt. And as a matter of fact, the chemical symbol for sodium, Na, comes from the word natron. The Egyptian word for it is hizmin. And Wadi al-Natrun, that's the Arabic name for the depression where natron occurs naturally. Natron can also be found in other parts of the world, such as in Big Soda Lake, Nevada, County, California, and there's also a place in Wyoming that also has naturally occurring natron. Now, most sources will tell you, okay, it's a mixture of salt and baking soda. Yes and no. If you really want to get technical about it, natron, which is sodium carbonate decahydrate, contains sodium chloride, which is table salt, and the example I have here is kosher salt because that doesn't contain iodine in it. Baking soda, of course, and this is probably the most common way that you'll find it, but keep in mind, baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. Another component you will need to make chemically correct natron is also sodium carbonate, which is commonly found as a pool supply, listed as soda ash. Another use for soda ash, which you may have encountered in summer camp, is as a pre-soak for cotton t-shirts before you tie-dye them. That softens the fibers and makes them accept the dye more readily. But in this case, we're going to be taking sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, sodium chloride, and one more form of sodium, you spot the pattern here, sodium sulfate, which is also called Glauber's salt. So in this case, rather than have just half baking soda and half table salt, what we're going to do is be using primarily the soda ash and sodium bicarbonate with a lesser amount of the table salt and the Glauber's salt. One other thing that I recommend, counter to other Kemetics in the broader world of Kemeticism, I do not cook down my natron. When I make it, I let it evaporate naturally. And there's a reason why. Because that's how it forms in Wadi al-Natron and the other places in the world where you find it. And that's important. If you look up natron on Wikipedia, it points out that it is a very temperature-specific compound. And if you apply too much heat, then you'll actually boil off some of the water molecules that are in natron. And it goes from being sodium carbonate decahydrate to sodium carbonate hydrate, only having one H2O molecule attached to it. So technically speaking, you'll have a salt, yes, but it will not be identical to the kind that is found naturally. Now we're going to up the science ante on this a little bit further because one thing to keep in mind, it is a salt crystal. And you might be familiar with crystals in crystal growing kits, like this one that I got from a hobby store. They work very much the same way. You have a chemical compound that you mix up and then you put in a particular environment, someplace that's about the right temperature and someplace free of vibrations, and you leave it to evaporate and it forms crystals. So we're actually going to do these purple crystals, and we're going to do natron crystals at the same time. And the main differences are going to be, other than the chemicals, that we're going to use hot water as they specified here, nearly boiling, for this one. But we're going to use, a little closer to body temperature, not much more than 100 degrees really, for the natron in order to mimic the natural environment. So we're going to start with our crystals first because they need the hotter water.
And our safety equipment.
Remember, kids, it's science. We've got our water going in a good roll, so we're going to pour out 200 milliliters that is specifically for our crystals, and we'll pour out a little more than a cup for the natron. And
what is 200 milliliters equivalent to in the U.S. measurement scale?
It's pretty close to a cup. Okay, yeah, actually, no, wait, no, 200 milliliters, it's a little less than a cup. So, if you have one that has metric and customary on either side, that really helps. We got this now. I'm going to add our purple crystal growing powder. Alright. Now you're supposed to stir this mix up for 2 minutes to make sure it's thoroughly dissolved. And basically we're putting it in solution. If you remember from chemistry class, of course water is the universal solvent, because give it enough time it will dissolve anything. Stir, stir, stir. Okay, it's done. Presumably it's going to react with some of the stuff in this rock here to give us some nifty crystals. And I say to try and center it. Well, in this jar that's a little easier said than done because I can't even see where it is. But okay. And so all we have to do is put it someplace where it can set for up to 7 days. And it will grow crystals. So we're going to use the same principle to make our natron. This is going to be a little more involved because we don't have it pre-mixed. We have to mix it ourselves. So we'll use a coffee scoop.
That we're not going to reuse, correct?
Probably not. Although, I mean, something like this, I probably could just throw it in the washing machine, you know, the dishwasher, you know, and
Okay, well, that's good because at least we can sterilize it that way.
right. Okay. So I'm using a full scoop of baking soda, a full scoop of the soda ash, which I notice it's not as powdery and fluffy. It's a little more grainy than the baking soda. For the table salt, we're only going to use about a little more than half of the scoop. And a little less than that of our Glaber salt. So I've got...
Now, what is Glaber salt?
Same. Like I said, less than half of this. And this is a coffee scoop. I don't know how many tablespoons it would be. What I'm primarily concerned with right now is the ratio of how much to how much. So we want substantially more of our sodium carbonate and bicarbonate and less of the other things. Now, to answer your question, what is
Glaber salt.
Glaber salt? Sodium sulfate. I'll just kind of dry mix these here, but I'll use just a plastic spoon. I don't think we have to worry about, you know, it reacting with something. You know, you had a wooden spoon for the purple crystals, but for this, you know, I think we can get away with just a plastic spoon. Other forms.
Is Glaber salt Epsom salt, or is that something
No,
different?
actually, that's a very good question. Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate.
Okay, because Epsom salt is also used
As a laxative, yeah.
as a laxative.
As a matter of fact, okay, this is Epsom salt. Epsom salt is not a component of natron. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, and that's the main component of your bath salts. And if you wanted to use some, like from a scented bath salt or something, you could, but use only like a pinch. Well, I want to strike a balance between having something that's, you know, not too hot, but still warm enough to aid the process of breaking down and putting things in solution, because warmer liquid will dissolve solids more readily. That's why if you add sugar to coffee or tea, it will blend faster if the coffee or tea is warm than if you're trying to add it to a cold drink. Same principle. So here we go. And I notice there's a lot more to have to stir up. Yeah, it's really trying to clump up, actually. So we're really going to have to try and break that up. I'm going to use the back end of a wooden spoon. if you have a glass jar, you can see how much is dissolving. And at least for the moment, we don't have to worry about vibrations. After having done this, I think another good recommendation I can make is before you start mixing everything, make sure there are no clumps in any of your components that you're adding to it. So it was a week and some change, technically an Egyptian week ago, that we did the salt crystals, and we also did some grow your own crystals at the same time. And immediately one of the things that I figured out is that the salsa jars are not very good at letting things evaporate. And I'll show for this camera. We got a few crystals in here, but they're kind of small, and I ended up pouring off a whole bunch of the solution. And you can see with this one, you have your high water mark. This is where the water was originally, and there's some salt encrusted on here, but then we still have an inch worth of water. So what I ended up having to do, sometimes trying something and failing is part of the discovery process. So I started pouring off bits into these little saucers and like this open dish so that it can evaporate a little better. It's more open. And I also put them in the toaster oven at about 100 degrees, you know, for about 20 minutes at a shot. And that also helped a lot. And I actually have some crystals. Let's see if... Fun thing that I figured out, I learned by reading about this, it's actually illegal to export Egyptian natron. So you couldn't buy it from Egypt anyway. And you have to make your own. I'm going to take a pestle basically because it's a very brittle incrustation, and you can just take it and break it up. And I wanted to make sure that I could do this in front of a camera so I wouldn't have to wait and do it all over again.
Apothecary skill improved.
Pretty much. But when you break it up, I noticed that this particular kind almost has a slippery feel to it instead of like salt crystals or baking soda like you would normally have. So you want to go ahead and try a little bit. Yeah, just while you just take. It has almost a slippery feel to it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, well, the reason for that is because it's alkaline. And that's one of the reasons why natron was so good at preserving bodies. Not only did it dehydrate them, it made them more alkaline, and so it was not a good environment for bacteria to grow in. So yeah, you might want to go and rinse that off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well,
so
I mean,
you can't eat this.
Huh?
So you can't eat this.
I wouldn't recommend eating it like, you know, like Pop Rocks or something. No, but
you might get digestive issues from.
Well, it might work as a mild laxative maybe if you had enough of it. But here's the other thing.
Table salt with it.
So yeah, don't replace table salt with it. In summation, I see. Well, once you start to break it up, you know, and it's like this fluffy. It almost looks like the stuff that you used to make snow in models, you know, model scenes with. For ritual purposes, natron is a cleansing property, cleansing substance. You know, we use it for casting out negative energy and for things like that, and also in various offering rituals, you know, natron is used. And it's associated with purity. Salt is actually used in Catholic exorcisms.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's something that goes back very far, and so, you know, that's, again, kind of in a parallel vein with the Kemetic use of natron. Let's see if the camera can see that. There we go. Some actual chemically correct natron. Made at home. Thank you to my lovely assistants who are just off camera, who have been helping with the actual, you know, science part of this. And, you know, put up with, you know, me using the toaster oven and other things for nefarious purposes. I appreciate it, and hopefully this has been educational for everyone. And for those of you at home, this gives you some pointers on how you can make your own natron, what would be the best, you know, way to evaporate it off and get something for your own ritual use. So there you have it. hopefully this has been a fun, educational, and instructive video for you, and gives you some ideas for how to go and make your own stuff. I just wanted to remind you before we go that you can follow the links in the description in order to do fun things like subscribe to this channel, join our Patreon community. There's going to be new exclusive videos coming out same time as this one for the Patreon community. And if you want to know about the live broadcasts that we do, those are every Friday night at 8:30 Central U.S. time. Keep in mind that sometimes we run a little bit late when we're trying to set up. We were kind of late last week because there was an issue with the microphone, but we got that straightened out, and that's when we always shoot for, is 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can join in on the chat, and we take requests for divination and things like that. You might have seen one of the live videos that we've done in the past, because they upload and they're there. You can watch and see what we've done in the past, and you can join in. It's a way to be part of the community in real time, and it's something we started doing right after all the lockdowns last year, and we're keeping it going because it's a way for everyone to connect and build some energy and just, you know, be together as Kemetics all at the same time. So you're welcome to join us every Friday evening, and you can also look forward to more videos coming on this channel very soon. So in the meantime, this is Sharon wishing you Sanipti. Enjoyed this video? Then be sure to hit like and subscribe to the Kemetic Independent channel. You can also buy my books on lulu.com and shop for pagan supplies in my Etsy store. Check the description for links. And special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Join us for updates, outtakes, and exclusive videos only on Patreon.